Here are some excerpts from a recent interview with Mrs. Wendy Leapman, in which Wendy recounts some of her memories of growing up as a child in wartime Britain. Our conversation with Wendy Leapman starts in August 1934.
And we lived in a house on the outskirts of Aldershot, and my father ran a small family business catering for the army, probably brass buttons and all sorts of paraphernalia. My mother, who was really a housewife, she would dearly have loved to have gone to university, but she was born in 1898, and the First World War put a stop to that.
She was born in Scotland?
In Glasgow, where her father, I think, was something of a pillar in the community. And I had an older sister, Edwina, who was born in 1931, and she was named after one of my mother's brothers who was killed in the trenches in the First World War, and it was a matter of great sorrow to the family, and that was why they moved to London.
This was Eddie, who was something of a favourite son or favourite brother.
I think he was much loved by everybody.
So who were you named for?
Probably after J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan and Wendy.
So, with no further ado, let's talk about the first photo.
Right. Well, it's an early picture before I was born. Right in the left-hand corner is my grandfather, my father's father, Harry, and I think he had red hair as a young man. I think I met him when I was very, very tiny, and my mother always liked him very much. Following on at the back, there are three brothers. The first is my father, the second is Uncle Phil, and the third is Uncle Bob, all of whom I remember very clearly.
So the next picture is who?
I think it must have been a studio portrait of Edwina and myself when we were very young. And whereas I was a rather chubby toddler, I suppose, Edwina had already the makings of being a very interesting and imaginative person. She was quite unique to look at as a child, which I wasn't. She had a great mop of red hair and was born with it, and my mother used to tell the story of how when the doctor saw her, he put his hands to warm them above her head because she had this fiery mop.
That's a nice picture. You look happy in that photo.
Yes, I think I was very happy as a child. I was the more biddable of the sisters, and Edwina was more rebellious as she grew older and assertive.
And did that difference in nature and temperament mean that you didn't have much in common, or did you get on well?
Well, we got on very well in our childhood. She used to tell me stories, and she used to have a sort of magical person called Winky Star, and then I had to have an imaginary person, and mine was much more pedestrian. I think it was Mrs. Elliot. It must have been after somebody. My mother used to go every day, it was part of her routine, to walk into the town. She'd go to Polsom, the dairy, and Badham's, the greengrocer. Polsom's would cut the cheese with a wire, and gave her little freebie dishes that were, in those pre-war days, shopkeepers were giving away, which I've still got 4 of the little glass bowls.
So you have a very keen memory from that period.
I do.
How do you remember it being to live in a period of war?
There was an enormous war effort. The railings in the front garden, they were taken away. Everything possible was used for munitions. As children, we had to write very, very small to save paper. The slogan was "Make, do and mend." And
did you live on your own in the house during those early war years?
no, because it was important to make the most of space. But we divided the house so that our family lived downstairs, and upstairs we let what became a flat with a stair up, of course, to a very delightful young couple, Eric Brown, who was a test pilot in Farnborough, a Scotsman, nice gentle voice, and his young wife, who was about 18, only about 4 years older than Edwina, who was lovely. She was Irish. She had a lovely singing voice. She became a great friend. Edwina and I were up in her kitchen chatting to her. And he became, of course, an amazing war hero during the war, with the most fantastic bibliography, I suppose, of exploits, and a real war hero.
Mm.